them on the screen. Please welcome our three panellists up here to talk more about those programs. Liz Yeo, Brett Mitchell and Alison Conn. I might just grab that right. Have you got a second mic? Yes, it's just in the back there, so we'll just wait. Brought over. I might just introduce you people who are with us in more detail. So starting with Alison here. Alison's managed the Wellington Information and Neighbourhood Services for the past 11 years. And obviously she's been the coalface of the local community. It's a genuine community hub governed by a community-based board, provides an information and referral service, a social worker, a youth service, a youth space, public computer and internet access, human services agency, tax information and a space for outreach services. So quite the one-stop shop. Alison herself has served as Western Regional Rep for the LCSA and as New South Wales Rep for AN at the CHA. She served as councillor on Wellington Council until the recently forced amalgamation. I'm sure she's got some strong views on that. Brett Mitchell as well, down the end there. He's been manager of Granville's Multicultural Community Centre since May last year. Before that, he was the director of Salvo's Counselling and has worked in various roles for the Salvos for more than 15 years. He started working in the community sector at YouthLink in Canley Vale in 2001. He's a registered psychologist and has a graduate diploma in psychology from Sydney Uni, as well as a Master of Arts in Theology from Manchester University in the UK. And he likes running ultra marathons, apparently, so there we go. He values the poor and marginalised in his community. He's passionate about people reaching potential, living lives that are worth living. And finally, in the video we heard from Liz, CEO of the Newtown Neighbourhood Centre, located in one of Sydney's most vibrant and socially progressive inner city communities. As a Newtown local, Liz is committed to seeing this community continue to reflect the core values of justice, inclusion, action and fun in the face of significant change. And of course, I don't need to probably explain that the subtext to the project there was the impact of the change in lockout laws, and the fact that a lot of people have been shunned into Newtown who wouldn't have gone there before. Liz began her career as a social worker in youth homelessness and has worked in the community sector for 30 years, including in volunteer and training management, HR and general management across a range of large and small non-profit organisations in health, education and community services. Liz believes in the power of local communities to achieve significant things together while having fun and building great relationships in the process. I might just ask, and we might follow the order of the video just to keep things clearer. So that means, yes, Brett, you go first. What's your centre best known for in the community, and what service attracts the most users in terms of numbers? And I suspect they may not be quite the same thing.
Well, Granville Multicultural Community Centre, which is a mouthful to say, so I'll just say GMCC from now on. But it's known for working with COLT communities in the area, particularly known for our cultural competency and supporting people, particularly migrants, and whether they're first generation, second or third, as they integrate into our community and need support. And probably all of our services are of value, but I think the youth service is probably the one most accessed, and that ranges from sport and recreation type activities to an adolescent support worker who works with people more at risk, and we even have a links to learn program as well, which is of value.
For people on the far right whose view is blocked by the lectern, if you want to move around or shift, please feel free. I know it's a bit annoying not to be able to see people. Otherwise, just stay there. So, do you want to pass your mic on to Alison? So the question was the most sort of famous service and the most used service.
Well, like Wellington Information and Neighbourhood Services, and we've got a better acronym, winners. We run a Centrelink agency, which is what is called a human services agency, so that would probably be what a lot of our local non-disadvantaged community consider us as, but we would be considered probably the one-stop shop for anybody who's suffering from any sort of disadvantage in our community, and our youth services obviously one of our most highly utilised services.
So it really does incorporate Australia with the video centre. And Liz?
Yeah, look, I think we would be definitely known for our frontline support, information and referral, and my community builders colleagues are here at the conference. But also we're particularly known for our boarding house outreach service, which is our main funded service through FACS, and that's a specialist service across the inner west. And then I'd like to think we're also known for our fun, which is Newtown Festival, for those that have been there. Hopefully there's a few in the crowd that have, which is an annual huge festival in Newtown. It attracts about 90,000 people. And that's our main fundraiser, and the Newtown Markets every Saturday if you're around the Newtown area.
So interesting that all three centres have fairly different profiles and activities in the community. I might pass that back offline. So we've looked at 3 specific place-based projects in that video, and starting with you, Brett, what was the primary motivation? I guess you kind of had 2 linked ones there, the language and the childcare activities. What was the motivation for doing those things, and what's been the most significant turning point as that project's developed?
Well, I guess it's been in the DNA since the inception of the centre, is to link migrant communities into the school system was the original motivation. So English classes have run since 1977, on and off in different formats. But essentially, what was the question?
Why do you want to do it, and what's your motivation? And feel free to just push that mic up to your mouth and
Sure.
in the room.
No worries. So the motivation is still to help our community members to integrate, to learn new skills. So English language is important, whether that's just communicating with Centrelink or catching a bus or trying to find accommodation. Learning our language is one of the primary things you need to do when you come to our country. In a sense, the childcare or the playtime sort of groups that we run are about those families coming together, meeting each other, building relationships with one another, helping the kids integrate into the community, learn new values and attitudes and behaviours in terms of how they operate outside of their family system. And as you saw from the video, some of the parents, the mums that have come along have stuck with us and are either volunteering or working for us now.
Yeah, it seems as though it really is a great entry point, and then once you're in the system, once you've developed those language skills, you can pursue even a career in things like childcare. And I can imagine in a place like Granville, an awful lot of people arrive, maybe plug into a local community of people from the same place, but in terms of joining the rest of the Australian community, a centre like yours is probably pretty critical to that.
Yeah, absolutely. It widens their network. Many of the community builders offer information or referrals, so we're a good, hub point where we can refer them out to other services and other support systems, whether that be just other community social activities or whether it be a particular service that they're looking for.
Any specific challenge in what we saw in the video, any particular turning point in terms of, a roadblock in getting around it? Funding is always an issue. Community builders, I believe, is a priority to the government, so they're going to continue to fund that, which is great for us. And besides that, it's just getting good staff and having the resources available for them, and then strategising, looking forward to what else does the community need, and being able to provide that in some way. It's interesting too, because when we hear so much about integration in the media and people who, shall we say, not particularly diverse in their own heritage are always banging on about it, but it looks as though the work that you do to welcome people in, it seems like a very positive experience for them and for you, and it does genuinely create a sort of community that everyone in the room is trying to build. Yeah, we certainly emphasise celebrating the difference, and we're not looking for people to adopt a new culture, but we're looking to celebrate their own culture. And one of our recent projects looked at 6 individuals who postnatal, it was a DVD we created, and we looked at people from Iran and Africa and some other cultural backgrounds as well, including Australia, and looked at the way after they gave birth to their child, what they went through, how they, with the different cultural differences, and celebrated those. And it was a good celebration
of the different people who live in our community.
Absolutely. So Alison, we looked at the program in Wellington, I guess brought the police with the community in a different context, playing football together and the links that created. How did that come about?
Gumtree Origin was actually the brainchild of Zeke Shaw, who you saw on the video. He's a local Aboriginal boy, and he truly did believe that police needed to be doing more with the community. I think the amazing thing was I attended Harwood probably the week before I met Zeke, and the two things just fitted precisely together in community development. So a lot of the work we've done with Gumtree Origin is the Harwood-based approach. We're going around the community talking to people, but everything we do from Gumtree Origin is not something that I say should be done or the police say should be done. It's things that people in our community say we want done. And they don't say, you do it for us, they say, you help us do it. So it's down to them to do what they want. We will support them and help them to get the results. And there's been some great results. We had a mental health forum, we had no full-time mental health worker in Wellington. Just this week, 3 mental health positions have been advertised in Wellington, so that's a direct result of some of the work we've done there. So it's not just been the football, it's not just been dobbing a dealer, it's been a whole variety of amazing things. And the police officer you saw on the tape wasn't the local police officer, he was in fact the superintendent in our LAC, and to get the attention and the absolute commitment from him has been an amazing backer to make that a successful program.
And it's fascinating too that, as we saw in the video, it's helped the police do their jobs better to a fairly extraordinary rate. I know in the radio programs that I sometimes present, we're always asking people to call Crime Stoppers. And I wonder always if people do read the number out, appeal for help, but of course there has to be a basis of trust before you ring them up. You need to know the person perhaps individually and not just as an authority figure with whom you might get in trouble. And it seems as though the project's been really transformative with that.
Dobbin and Dealer has been the most incredible project. It's used local children. It's based on the fact this is our local community, and it's actually a photograph of local children going to play with a syringe, which is a fairly common thing in our society, unfortunately, today. But everybody knows those kids, and they know that dealers don't discriminate. So it's been absolutely amazing in that it's really pulled the whole community together, because they always wondered what happened to those phone calls. Now they know, now they're seeing results and they're being fed back to them. Those results were never fed back to the community before, so it's great.
And there's traditionally been a cultural divide, I guess, between police and young people, and particularly people from non-white backgrounds. How have you seen that barrier being broken down? It seems like it has been.
Well, if we're going back to Dobbin and Dealer, which I may add has been actually funded federally now. We did it with no funding, of course.
So price of success.
The amazing thing was it was Aboriginal people standing up in that room and saying, I don't want to see my kids, I don't want to see this happen to my kids, my brother, my sister, this is happening to people in my family. Traditionally, as Aboriginal people, we don't dob in. But we have to do this if we want our families to stay together and continue our strong culture. And so, as I said, it was driven by community, not by me, not by the police, by Aboriginal people themselves standing up and saying that.
And when you choose a project like that, I know you said it was a response to the community's request, do you have a sense of what's going to happen, or is it a matter of just try it and see? What's your approach to actually picking what to choose of all the different offers that come across the table?
Well, I don't pick it, they pick it. It's up to them, it's up to the people in the community, and we will support what our community wants us to support.
So if they want to do it, you'll help them, but it's got to come from them.
Yes, absolutely.
Sounds like a really great approach. Let's move on to Liz, and a very topical project there, looking at how to preserve Newtown's vibe, and I'm sure that's another key part of a neighbourhood centre, and why neighbourhood centres are different. For people who haven't been to Newtown, what is the vibe of Newtown?
That's the $1 million question. Because that was one of the first things that when we started the roundtable we had to actually discuss. What do we mean by the vibe of Newtown? You know, what are we all signing up to here? And I think the really common way people describe it is that you can be anyone in Newtown and no one should blink or, you know, turn around if you walk past with pink hair or 50 nose rings or whatever it is. No one should care in Newtown. So you can be anyone in Newtown. The other thing that people have often said in the community is the vibe is it's about quirky, it's about, you know, edgy. There's lots of artists and musicians. We have a really high proportion of musicians in Newtown. So there's there is that strong sort of vibrant artistic culture. Do you want me to talk to the beginnings of the project?
Yeah, so how did you had this particular problem, the vibe seemed to be under threat. People may have seen the news reports about some of the violence that we mentioned in the video as well. So you have a problem. How do you choose what to do? How do you choose which specific projects to do?
Great question. I just wanted to go back slightly on the vibe stuff and how it started, because even though the violent incident that involved a transgender person at a bar, prior to that we had actually spoken to people at the markets, and I'm ashamed to say that was actually the first time when I talked to young people myself at our markets in May, where they said, you know, I don't go out late at night anymore, I don't feel safe on the street, so I feel like my friends who are queer are getting, you know, sideways comments and all that sort of stuff. So that was actually the first I'd heard of it, and then the incident happened, and then we could just sense there was this real groundswell, and I mentioned the public meeting, and we decided to put that out, and we were also fairly new ourselves to social media and everything, and we put it out on Facebook as an event. And we got over 700 people who said they wanted to come to this event. Now, you know, on Facebook, 700 people are never going to turn up, but the fact that it showed that level of concern and interest in the community, both from our individual consultations and then from the public meeting and the incident. So it was all about timing, that all of those things happened around that time.
So it's so easy to say something should be done about this, and I have a lot of friends who did say that, who live in that area, but how do you decide? How do you come up with something as simple as handing out a flower at a train station or having events in the street at night? Someone's got to actually think of that creative idea, don't they?
Yeah, they do. So I think, and I have to give credit to the local member, because she raised a lot of the concerns as well, and was a key driver in setting up both the public meeting and the round table. And I think the way we came up with the ideas was we got around the table, the councils, the police, community members, local bars, etc. And we all said, what are the things we can each contribute to this? So everyone's been able to bring different things to it. And I think in terms of, to your point about what we do, I think a core value for us at Newtown Neighbourhood Centre is around fun. And, you know, we do a lot of, and all of us in the room do a lot of really serious work, a lot of really hard work, a lot of really sometimes quite depressing and energy sapping work at times. Also some really energising stuff and some fun stuff. And that's something that I think we can be known for, and so we said, right, well, can we do this creative? And a number of my colleagues sat around and said, well, we're good at events, we like doing events, we love music, we love art, we run markets, we want to celebrate local artists. So, you know, our first night we had a group of guys called the Cruise and Juices. I'd recommend them if you haven't seen them, if you like rockabilly music, and they're from Newtown High School, and they are a fantastic band, you know, so we said, what can we put on that's not polished and beautiful and big scale, but we are in the heart of Newtown. As my colleague from Young Henry said, Oscar, we're in the heart of Newtown, so how can we utilise and activate that space? It's a space that people are walking past all the time, people are sitting outside. So let's come up with something that reflects all of that creativity in one space on a Friday night and do it over a few weeks and see what happens.
So finally, before we take questions from the floor, I'm just going to ask each of you one more question. Alison in the video talked about the unique role of the neighbourhood centre in breaking down silos. It's a place where lots of different services come together, and in fact it's probably a broader diversity of things on the table in terms of what we just talked about than any other place in the community where things are in silos, there are different institutions. But I'm wondering how hard it is to break down those silos, and what specific, and we heard, you know, the police being involved in Liz's project as well with the bar training. How do you break down the silos and bring those things together? What tips do you have for others who want to do a better job of that? We'll start with you again, Brad.
I think it's important to build partnerships and relationships with everyone in the community. From my perspective, a community centre or a neighbourhood centre is not about providing services just to the community, it's actually about building community. And so having those relationships with as many people, whether it's police and local members and prominent figures in the community, but also the people who literally live in the neighbourhood. and building those relationships. And sometimes those relationships might seem redundant at first, but you never know what fruit might come from it later down the track. And listening as much as possible and continuing to foster partnerships wherever possible, which is sometimes a risk, because you risk the autonomy of what you're running, you risk losing your identity in that. But it's important to build partnerships, and I think we're always better if we work together.
Is there a specific example of a group who've had to work particularly hard to pull into the net, in a sense? And how did you do it, if there is one?
I think sometimes, generally speaking, the schools in the area, the high schools have been great. We've had great relationships with them. But over some issues, sometimes they can get a bit challenging, and so, your rapport and the trust you've had over years, helps. But just having conversations. Everyone comes to the table sometimes with different agendas, so it's important to work on those. And the schools probably in recent times have created some challenges in our relationships over particular issues.
Now, Alison, you used this term. We saw in the work that Brett Centre does, this project of integration, but neighbourhood centres, it seems to me, also integrate services in a way that no one else does, as per your program. What advice would you give to others seeking to create those sorts of new relationships and come together for a project?
Listen to your community. Listen to what your community wants. It's down to your community. It's not up to you and what the government agencies want. It's what your community wants.
And then how do you get agencies to buy into that? How do you get them to come on board? It might not have been a problem in that particular project, but maybe there were others where it was.
I think in a small town we're unique. We're probably in a different position to what a lot of other organisations are. We have a lot less services. So most services come to us to try and get clients anyway, because they all come to our community. But you have to get those other people in the room with actual community members, not service providers, etc. They have to be in the room with other community members so that the community can genuinely tell them what they want.
There you go. And finally, Liz, the question of how you bring these things together.
I want to echo Alison's point about it's got to come from the community. So if the community really cares about something, they'll get behind it, and so will the key players, in my experience, in this project, in the community. The other one would be definitely, while you might have some individual differences and obviously different agendas that we're all running, but if you do have something that's a really strong core and common purpose, something that you are all signing up to, even if it is something as amorphous as we all want to protect the Newtown Five in our case, that's what we're signing up to. And even if it means, look, sometimes we might do things that you might want to do something that group doesn't agree with or doesn't like. At the very least, what we've agreed around the table is we'll have a conversation about it. We won't just go off and do something that might annoy or cause disadvantage to one other member of that group from their perspective. So at least have that respect to go. We're going to have sometimes some different agendas, but let's talk about them as much as possible up front.
And in this case, you were working with the local pubs as well, it seems, which I would suspect is not something that community centres always do. What was that like?
It's fun. They offer you free drinks. I'm not kidding. I mean, they say, "Oh, you've got a volunteer thing coming up. Oh, sure, we'll host it over at the pub across the road. Come and So it's actually established other beneficial relationships. We're about to launch the Newtown Festival in a few weeks at Young Hemmings. So it does create these other great potential relationships that are good for all of us.
So there you go, 3 really interesting place-based projects. I'm sure everyone's brains are ticking over about how some of these lessons might apply to your communities. We've got the microphones on stage, unfortunately, but are there questions for any of our panellists? John, I might give you this microphone. If there are any particular questions. There's one over there. There's...
Hi, my name is Michelle from Peninsula Community Centre at Woy. My question is, how do you deal with community apathy? So if you have a lot of social issues in your area, or seeing a lot of overworked people in your area, how do you deal with apathy when you're trying to involve the community, but they don't want to be involved?
I might again get each panellist to comment individually, starting with you.
Yeah, that's a real challenge sometimes, because there might be a community issue and we might be passionate about it, but if the community is not interested in it, it's really hard to engage them. And I think from experience, going around finding people who have some level of passion, trying to empower them, trying to equip them, trying to encourage them. Sometimes people have got fantastic skills and connections and influence in the community, but they have no confidence that they might be able to do something. So trying to champion them, if you like, to be the champions of whatever the cause is. But yeah, it can be a tough starting out when it feels or it's perceived that the community is apathetic.
Deal with it every single day, and it's very, very difficult. With this particular program, again, I refer to Zeke. He went out and picked people up. He picked every family member up, every person he knew, all across the community, and brought them in until they became empowered and impassioned by the program. And we built so much capacity that way. One of the interesting learnings has been we've had an enormous number of volunteers come out of this, but these volunteers haven't been they've been socially isolated for a very long time. So it's caused a lot of friction and difficulties in that way, but it's been amazing to see them empowered, and all of them want to be part of it now. And but it was literally going out and picking people up and bringing them into the centre and making them come.
It's fascinating to me how much marketing is involved in this as well. And we've got three, inherently, I think, attractive ideas here. Come and learn English and we'll take care of your kids. Come and play tip footy against cops. Who would not want to do that? As opposed to come and foster closer relationships with the cops. Sounds terrible. And come and have fun, and we'll give you hand out flowers, and we'll have bands in the street. Again, that sounds fun. So really interesting to me, just as someone who doesn't work in the sector. I hear those three ideas and I just think, that sounds great. And maybe that's a way of overcoming a figure. I'm sure that sounds easy, but
I forgot to mention food.
Food, there you go. Everyone agrees with that.
Yeah, we didn't experience a lot of apathy in this particular project, I have to say, a lot of energy actually, but I think part of that was around just the fun element, and those who did get involved, you could get involved at a very simple level of handing out a flower, at a railway station as a volunteer. And I know I went myself out for dinner one Friday night, and my friends turned up for dinner, and one of them walked in and she had this gerber in her hand, and she went, "Oh my God, look what happened, I just arrived at Newtown, someone gave me a flower." I said, "It's Newtown Neighbourhood Centre, thank you very much." And just the joy that brought to people, just a really simple thing like that, without a whole lot of, people were, initially the first week people were suspicious. What are they after? Are they going to ask for money? Are they, what are they selling? There was all of that the first week, and week on week, suddenly there started to be people coming out going, "Oh, I wonder if there's going to be flowers, wonder what they're going to have this week." And so just a simple thing sometimes would be my message, can help with that low energy or apathy. Just give people a simple, lovely thing to do.
Yeah, and to keep pushing past the cynicism barrier. We've probably got time for one more question before we kick off the current sessions, and there's one over there. We've heard from you already, guys, so if there's someone nearby, it's all good.
Yeah, from Richmond again. I just wanted to ask the question from Newtown. You said you asked 3 questions, which is a great breakdown from the sort of 6 of the community conversations, and I just wondered if you could repeat those 3 questions again.
What do you love about Newtown? What would you change? And how would you change it?
Thank you.
We've probably got time for one more very brief question before we break up for the day. This is the end of our time in this room. Over there, just get Jan moving all the way across the room. So the whole music, if someone wants to, all the way over to the first person I saw. And again, feel free to put the brains on the stage over the next few days.
I'm Robert Bussey from Department of Family and Community Services. Liz, just a question for you. How did you measure, because this will be one of the things in various reforms we're always required to measure, how did you measure whether you'd improved or retained or improved the Newtown vibe?
I'm going to throw this to all three panels section.
Yeah, great question. So we obviously had some measures on our Friday Night Vibes program around, and that was around numbers of people and the sort of vibe they experienced. So a lot of it is still fairly qualitative because it is actually asking people, and I'm not making this up because I asked some of these questions myself. People said things like, if I wasn't here, I'd be at home depressed by myself watching television. People said things like, this is what Newtown is about. It's about us feeling safe, about us being out, about us just enjoying this area. So there was a lot of that sort of qualitative feedback. In terms of the, there's obviously some overall population outcomes that we are trying to work towards around people feeling more connected. So there is data that we will be able to track on that, but again, we can't obviously take anything like all the credit for that. That's very much about a collective approach. But that was hard to get agreement, to be honest, with the roundtable around, are there specific measures people want to sign up to, or indicators? People definitely wanted to sign up to, we all want to protect the Newtown vibe, but there was less enthusiasm about getting really concrete and number-oriented. So obviously when we got funding for our Friday Night Vibes project, which was from City of Sydney, we did have to have some measures around that and report back on that.
So I'm hearing in this new area you've got to quantify a vibe. Good luck with that.
I think measuring things can be very challenging, particularly when you're looking at qualitative sort of data, because how do you measure a vibe? One of the simple questions I like to ask, particularly when something's been going for a while, and I think all projects have seasons, so they can be very successful for a while and then they start to peter out, and sometimes you have to close things down, which can be a hard decision to make sometimes. But I think one of the questions I really like to ask is, if we shut this down, would it make a difference? Would the community notice? And if the answer is yes, they would. If they would notice if it wasn't there, if it's probably making a difference and it's worth holding on to.
From our point of view, what I already mentioned, 3 advertised positions for mental health workers, we had none. We've just opened a Gunji Origin boxing gym, which we have a lot of young people participating in. We'll obviously have to wait and see how that goes. The number of people that are participating in the football, and obviously dog in a dealer was quite easily quantifiable. So, from our point of view, our outcomes have been fairly easy to measure thus far, but there's still a lot to come. So.
I just want to add one thing.
Sorry, I just want to add one concrete thing, which is around, obviously we have the police there, so we do get regular reports on the statistics, the crime statistics. So the incidents in Newtown, even though there was a perception, and it doesn't mean there isn't a lot of verbal harassment and stuff that is going on, but in terms of actual serious police incidents, they were not up in proportion to the numbers of people coming to the area.
So there you have it. Build metrics into the design of the program, I suppose, is your spirit. Look, please thank our panellists.